SE350. My department is computer engineering and this is my first year at school. Today I'm going to present you a game analysis, and the analysis will be about the game called ZooTycoon2. I know this is a very old game. The game is first published in 2004 by Microsoft, but I chose that game because this is a meaningful game for me. This game is one of the first games that I ever played in my life, so I chose that game to be analyzed. Let's start with a quick video about the game, and I will start my presentation after that. As you can understand from the video and the name of the game is about zoo, and in this game you build your own zoo by using your imagination and creativity. In this presentation I will talk about first dramatic elements, and I will go over with the formal elements of the game. Let's start with the dramatic elements of the game. The first one is challenge. In this game, when you first start the game offers you three main modes, and which are scenario mode, freeform game mode, and the challenge mode. As you can understand from the names of the modes, in freeform game mode you are free and you build your zoo however you want. In scenario mode you follow a story that game gives you, and in challenge mode the game gives you some challenge and you accept these challenges and something like that. In this game I think there is not a challenging activity that requires skill, but there are some clear goals and the results of these goals. What do I mean by that? Basically, in challenge mode, if you successfully complete a challenge, the game gives you some cash or a special item that is useful for your zoo. But if you couldn't finish a challenge successfully, then the game punishes you, like money penalty or decrease in zoo attendance. So the game's challenge is like that. The second one is play. Of course there are some limitations in this game. For example, about this Bengal tiger, the Bengal tiger belongs to some biome, and if you build a cage to that tiger other than that biome, then your tiger get upset, and this affects your visitors. Also, as a result, this affects your money. This affects the money you earn. So you should consider these things. Everything is connected with each other. And the difficulty of the game depends on player's choice. If you want to play a difficult game, then you can choose the challenge mode and accept all the challenges and play a difficult game. But if you don't want to play a difficult game, if you want to only relax and have fun, just choose the freeform game mode and do whatever you want. So game gives players that opportunity. The third one is premise. Firstly, I think when you first start the game, you feel like you're an owner of a zoo, because you build something, you buy some tigers, lions, some animals, etc. Also, when you first start the game, in this first picture, you choose a place to build your zoo. It's a world map, so the game has a real place. By the way, also the game is really realistic, the needs of animals, for example. So you feel like you are really constructing a zoo and managing a zoo. So the game gives players that feeling. The fourth one is character. Actually, the game, because this game isn't a story-based game, there is not a strong character. But I think there are some little characters, like for example in this second picture you see guest lists, and every guest has their own attributes like names, happiness, hunger, etc. So I think these are the little characters of the game. Also, animals I think can be considered as a character, because you name your animals, and your animals has some needs like hunger, again, need for sleep, etc. So I think we can consider these things like characters. And if you want, you can consider yourself as a character who owns the zoo, who who is boss, for example. So it is like that. The last dramatic element is story. As I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, the game has a third mode, which is story mode, scenario mode. And in this scenario mode you follow a story that game gives you, and you accept the tasks and make these objectives, etc. So if you want, you can choose playing story mode, but I don't prefer, and in this kind of game I think it is not necessary to have a story. Let's continue with the formal elements of the game, and the first one is players. Firstly, the game is single player game. There is not a multiplayer or online option. But then why do we people want to play that game? What is the invitation to play? It's the creating something that you can't create in real life. Maybe you can have a zoo, you can construct a zoo, but it wouldn't be that easier like in this game, because in game you put some fences, some trees, some pools, etc., and it suddenly gets real. But in real life you can't do something like that this fast. So players like this creating some things easily and fast compared to real life, so players prefer playing that game. The second one is objectives. The main objective of the game is construction, I think, which means players have to construct, maintain, or manage game objects. The main objective of the game is this, but there are some little objectives, like in challenge mode or scenario mode you should complete some objectives to earn some rewards. The third one is procedures. I think the procedures of the game are easy to follow. Everybody can understand and play that game easily. The starting action of the game is, as I mentioned before, first you choose a place to build your zoo, then you start to build your zoo. The progression action is using your mouse and the keyboard. You build your zoo and buy some animals, etc. The special action can be when you complete a difficult challenge. The game gives you really special item and it affects your zoo in a good way, so this can be considered as a special action. But in this game there is no resolving action, because the game doesn't have an story, so the game never ends. If you get bored the zoo that you built, just delete it and start from the beginning, etc. So the game doesn't have a resolving action because this game doesn't have an end. The fourth one is rules. Actually the game has really too few rules, so I think it is a good thing to make free, to get to give freedom to players. It's a good thing, I think. Of course there are some rules, but these rules are only for to give the game purpose or for make the game meaningful. As I mentioned before about this biome thing, you should consider that biome which is suitable for this animal, so you shouldn't use other items that isn't suitable for that biome, etc. You should consider these rules when you're playing that game, but there are not strict rules. The fifth one is resources. As you can guess, the basic resource of the games is money. This game has money as well, so when you buy animals, when you construct your cages, etc., you should consider your money, and if you buy something you lose your money, etc. So resource, the first and the most important resource is money. The second resource is, I think, the time, because the challenge has a limited time, so you should finish some challenge in a limited time. Also, place you have is limited. You can't build everything to everywhere, so the area you have is can be considered as a resource. The sixth formal element is conflict. Again, because of the concept of the game, because it is not a competitive game, there is not a thing that prevents you to achieve your goal in this game. But in challenge, if you fail some challenge, the game punishes you. So these can be considered as a conflict. The seventh one is boundaries. Physical boundaries are the area you have, the place you have, because you can't construct everything to everywhere. So place you have is a physical boundary. The rule-based boundaries is basically you can't put every animal in same cage. For example, if you put lions and bunnies in same cage, then the lions kill bunnies, so you shouldn't do that. The emotional boundary is the line that separates the real world and the game world. Basically, I think it's the how easy you can build something compared to real world, as I mentioned previously. Also, you can do something that you can't do in real life, like in this game you can release your lions or tigers or your wild animals to your visitors and they can kill them, but in real life you can't do such a thing. So the emotional boundary, I think these things. The last formal element is outcome. Again, the game, because of the game's concept, there is no competition and there is not a winner or loser at the end of the game. Also, the game doesn't have an end, so the outcome, I think, not that strong. But if you complete some tasks, you win some things like stars or cash or some rewards. So I think the outcome can be considered like that. In conclusion, the game is based on freedom and your imagination of yours. So the game doesn't have a really strong conflict or outcome or etc. And creating and building is the main idea. So the game is only for make you entertain. I made this table to sum up the ideas that I mentioned before. For example, I gave 2 to outcome because the game doesn't have a really good outcome, etc. because of the concept of the game again. Thank you for listening.